What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 college football schedule preview and projected record series. The Michigan State Spartans are up next, and before we preview their schedule for 2024 and give them an early projected record based on how tough their schedule is, let's take a look back at what Michigan State did in 2023. Here were my projections and predictions last year for Michigan State. My projection had them at 9-3, and then my prediction for them was 8-4. So I wasn't really as high on Michigan State to win like 10 games last year, but I did expect this team to kind of turn things around after a 5-7 season in 2022. But Michigan State turned out to be worse than that. They went 4-8 last year in 2023. Of course, Mel Tucker got fired, in the middle of the season or maybe early part of the season in 2023. So Michigan State coming off a very disappointing season last year. Here was the schedule last season for the Spartans, and you look at their non-conference schedule. They played Central Michigan, Richmond, and Washington here out of the Pac-12. Washington ended up being a team that went to the national championship last year, so that was a tough non-conference game there, especially playing them at home. They got shut out in that game. And then you look at the losses coming into the Big Ten. They lost to Maryland here, Iowa on the road, Rutgers on the road, Michigan here at home, Minnesota on the road, and then Ohio State here on the road. So they had a very tough schedule last year. It's no surprise because they did play in the Big Ten East last year. So that was the schedule from 2023. Now Michigan State going to be in a rebuild mode. They hired Jonathan Smith as their head coach this season. So we'll see if he can turn the program around here. Let's take a look at the schedule now for 2024. And before we go game by game, let's take a look at who Michigan State will play in the non-conference this upcoming season. So this is their non-conference schedule. They will play Florida Atlantic, not a bad group of 5 team there out of the non-conference. Then they play Perryview A&M, and then they go on the road here to play Boston College out of the ACC. So that's a very interesting non-conference game there with Boston College here on the road. You get Florida Atlantic and both Perryview A&M here in the non-conference, both here at home. And like I said, Florida Atlantic won't be really easy, but Perryview A&M is pretty much one of their easiest non-conference games here on this schedule. So this is a pretty tough non-conference schedule for Michigan State, but it should be a favorable schedule for them. There's definitely a lot of very winnable games here in the non-conference. So that's a non-conference schedule for 2024. Let's now go back to the schedule here and go game by game now. They will open things up with Florida Atlantic here on August 31st, and then after that they open up Big Ten play here rather early in week number 2 this season. They go on the road to play Maryland here on September the 7th. Then they come back here at home to play Perryview A&M here on September the 14th, and then they go on the road to play Boston College here, their third non-conference game here on September the 21st. Then they come back here at home for a big-time game against Ohio State here on September the 28th. Then they get to the month of October. They'll go on the road to play Oregon, one of the newcomers coming up in the Big Ten this season. And then they get a bye week here in the second weekend of the month of October. They come out of the bye week to play Iowa here on October the 19th. Then they go on the road to play rival Michigan here on October the 26th. Then they get to the month of November. They'll play Indiana here at home on November the 2nd. Then they get their second bye week here in the second weekend of the month of November. Then they go on the road to play Illinois here on November 16th. And they come back here at home to play Purdue here on November 23rd. And then they close things out with Rutgers here on November 30th. Interesting that they're playing Rutgers at the end of the year instead of Penn State. You look at the schedule for Michigan State, though, it's a pretty tough schedule when you got Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan here. You got a couple of tough road games with Oregon and Michigan in the Big Ten. And then you got some trap games on here with Illinois and, definitely Maryland and Boston College. Yeah, it's a pretty tough schedule for Michigan State and Jonathan Smith's first year as the head coach here for the Spartans. But no Penn State on this schedule, which I think is good news. If they did have to play Penn State here in the Big Ten, that would definitely make the schedule a lot more brutal. But let's get to the projection here and find out what the projected record is for Michigan State. This is not going to be my official prediction. This is simply going to be a projection based on how tough the schedule is. And this is the scale I use here for my projections. If it's a 1% game in the red, that percentage is counted as an automatic loss here in that projection here. 20% games in the orange are going to be games where Michigan State will be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs. 40% games in the yellow are going to be games where they'll be about a heavy underdog game. them by about a touchdown. And then 50-50 games will, of course, stay in the white. Games I think can go either way. 60% games here in the purple are going to be games where there will be favored by at least a touchdown. 80% games in the blue by about a couple touchdowns and also by double digits. And then the 99% games here in the green are pretty much the automatic wins here when we do these projections for each and every single team. So we'll start with the easy wins here for Michigan State on this schedule. I think you got a couple of them on here for the Spartans, Florida Atlantic, and Prairie View A&M. However, that Florida Atlantic game is definitely at 90%. I don't see it being over 95%. Florida Atlantic is a pretty good group of 5 teams, so you kind of don't want to sleep on that one if you're a Michigan State fan. It's not counted as a, guaranteed win, but we count them as automatic wins here in the green, basically when we do these projections for each and every single team. Prairie View A&M, though, is definitely the easiest non-conference game. I think that game is definitely over 95%. I think Michigan State can win that one by at least by 30-plus points or maybe like over 20-plus points. So both of these games are not guaranteed wins, but we count them as automatic wins here for Michigan State. And then when you look at the rest of the schedule, there's not really any other games on here. I can favor the Spartans in the Big Ten by a couple touchdowns and also by at least a touchdown. So let's go to the games now where Michigan State will be an underdog in. I don't have any automatic losses here for Michigan State, but I do have some orange games on here at 20% in the orange, the games where there'll be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs. And I got 3 of them on here: Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan. These are all very tough, games here for Michigan State. I know Ohio State here is at home, but, that's a game that probably should be in the yellow. But let's be honest, Michigan State is not quite on the level of Ohio State like they used to be. So I do expect that one to be a very tough, home game for them, especially in the month of September. Ohio State is going to have a lot of talent this year. I don't really expect Michigan State to compete in that game as of right now. And then Oregon, especially playing here on the road, I was very close to putting this one in the red, but I'm going to stick with it and put it in the orange for right now. But that's an Oregon team that's going to be very good this year. And then you got Michigan here. I know this is a rival game. It should be in the yellow because Michigan's going to have a lot of roster turnover, but I'm still going to put it here in the orange, basically just because Michigan is playing here at home, and with it being on the road, that's definitely an orange game here for Michigan State. So that is the games where I think Michigan State will be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs. Let's go to the games now where there'll be a heavy underdog in by about a touchdown. And to be honest, I only got one game on here in the yellow, and that's Iowa here at home on October the 19th. They get a bye week before playing this game. That's definitely a very winnable game here for Michigan State. I know the Hawkeyes were pretty good last year, but they weren't really good on the offensive side of the football. But defensively, they were definitely very good on that side of the football. But Michigan State playing at home, I think they'll be a clear underdog in this game. I think it's definitely an upset alert type game if Iowa was ranked in the top 25 somehow. So that's the only game that I see Michigan State being a heavy underdog in. And then the rest of the 6 games on here, I got Maryland, Boston College, Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, and Rutgers. These are all the 50-50 games here for Michigan State. I think they are definitely very winnable. You look at Maryland, a team that's probably going to be taking a step back this year. Then you look at Boston College. I don't know how good they're going to be, but they could be a very sneaky good team in the ACC. And you got Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, and Rutgers. Pretty average teams in the Big Ten. I think they'll be, I think they'll be at least close with all these 4 games. I think they are definitely winnable. If they can win at least like 3 out of the 6 games here in the 50-50 range, or maybe like all of them in the 50-50 range, Michigan State is definitely going to a bowl game. But when you average out these 50-50 games, or split these 50-50 games, I should say, I'd say they win like 3 out of the 6 here, because we have 6 50-50 games. So I'd say they win like 3 out of the 6 games here. So again, all these games that you're seeing in the white are 50-50 games here for Michigan State. And what does the projected record come out to be here for Michigan State for 2024? Again, this is not my official prediction. This is simply a projection based on how tough the schedule is. So we count those 2 green games as automatic wins, and then you average out the 20% games here at 20%, and then you average out that 1 yellow game at 40%. Then you average out all these 50-50 games here, and the overall projected record that you get here for Michigan State for 2024 comes out to be 5-7 here. So a 5-7 projection here for 2024. Again, it's kind of hard to tell how good Michigan State is going to be, but I can definitely see them making it to a bowl game with all the 50-50 games that they do have here on this schedule. And like I said, if they win all those 50-50 games, they'll definitely go to a bowl game this year. But again, I do see them winning 3 out of the 6 games here in the 50-50 range. Again, 5-7 is the projection here for Michigan State. I think best case scenario would definitely have to be 6-6, and then worst case probably like 4-8 or 3-9. But I think Jonathan Smith's going to do a really good job here at Michigan State. It's going to take some time for them to get back to where they used to be in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten is definitely going to get tougher and tougher as the years to come. But again, Michigan State, their overall projected record for me is 5-7 for 2024. Give me your thoughts on this Michigan State team down in the comments below. What do you think their projected record is for 2024? Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.